Hello, everybody. Hello. It is me, Joe Dubs, on Couch Entertainment. How are ya?
Hello, guys. Back to normal voice. I'm back here, and we're doing a live stream today. We're doing a quick recap, kind of testing the waters with live stream today. As you can tell, there's no cam today, and I'll give you a reason why there's no cam. I just feel like I have a crappy camera, which I need to update at some point. But usually, when I'm on camera with all the videos that you've been seeing on Couch Entertainments, I'm usually a mess. And who really wants to look at my messy self? So there's gonna be certain times when I do videos, I'll have a camera or not. Again, it's not about how I look; it's based off of what I'm talking about in each episode, anyway. But if you do want to see me on camera, comment down below. Tell me that, hey, you like to see people's faces when they do reviews on their expressions and everything. I would like to know your guys' feedback before that, but I'm pretty sure nobody really cares on how I look. So, anyway, when I'm talking about as far as like testing the waters, as far as live stream, and with all the trials that I've been doing on the show, whether it be the Ark, whether it be the Last of Us, and whether it be Picard season 3, is that doing those videos does take some time, and knowing that I do other things besides this channel is kind of becoming a lot of stuff on my plate. So I'm thinking about doing things this way, where I pick one main story or one main show, and I'm having coughing fits already. Great. Um, but one main show where I'm covering it every single episode, and I'm going in depth as far as what I'm doing those shows. So far, I'm leaning towards Picard being that show, but it's funny. Every episode, I'm just like, "This is amazing." I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know how I could critique it in a way where I'm just like, "This is not good." Everything is fine to me, but we'll get to that Picard soon. So there'll be one main analysis video that is not going to be live, and I'll edit it, and it will have a structure to it. Now, I'm going to be doing a live, either a weekly or bi-weekly. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to actually make a video on what my plan will be, but I'm just giving you an idea of what's going on. But the live weekly or bi-weekly show will contain all the other shows that I'm watching, and kind of give you an up to date as far as what I'm doing with that. So anyway, we'll get into that down the road. How I'm gonna handle these reviews is we're gonna go through each show. We're gonna have the Ark, which is season 1, episode 6, The Last of Us, season 1, episode 8, and then Picard, which is season 3, episode 4. And the structure is that it's gonna be pretty much raw emotions on it. I'll try to have somewhat of a structure to it. Again, I'm going to be doing like trial runs as far as what structure I should be doing on the live show. But for now, I'm just going to give you what I think about it, and what I didn't like about it. Now, two of the shows are going to have some critiques that I'm just not fond of, and I'll give you that hint because I showed my hand already. Picard is the show that's giving me entertainment the most. So let's get into the first show, which is the Ark season 1, episode 6. And before that, I want to give you an ad because, like I said, I do other things. So here we go.
What's the best Indiana Jones movie? Which Dracula movie was the worst? Who even is Andrei Tarkovsky? 4 hosts, somehow 5 or more opinions. The ranking movie podcast you'll put at the top of your list. Check out Big Trouble in Little Podcast live every week at 10 p.m. Eastern or anytime on YouTube and anywhere you get your favorite podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Stitcher.
All right. So let's get this set up here. We're going to do the Ark. Just bear with me. This is not like OBS. I'm doing everything through StreamYard. Here we go. So I'm going to give you guys some good points on this episode, because I will say this is way better than last episode and the other one where I was just getting annoyed because things are starting to mesh together. We're starting to get some character development, and I made a point. I don't know whether it was last episode or the other following past episode, but I made a point where like every episode we're getting into a big problem and we need to fix this now. And that's mostly the episode where they kind of sprinkle in some character developments. And I will give them credit where credit is due. There is sprinkling that happened in those past episodes that are starting to finally start blooming. And I'm fine with that. But I think that still could have been written better because you got to remember everybody's on a short attention span, especially with all the, the TikToks and the Twitters and all that stuff. People don't have time to wait till episode 5 or episode 6 to be like, oh, things are starting to get interesting. Usually people check out by episode 3. Sometimes the first episode is a deal breaker. And with, you know, with this episode, yeah, there's a problem that's happening where their main problem in this episode is that they have to get to a planet with resources because their resources, which I think is gas and oil, is running out on the ship, and Eva had to pretty much move power from 100% to 50% because they're not going to make it based off of the fuel, and they have to get to a certain planet to get that resources. And of course, there's another sub problem that happens on that top of that problem, which we'll get into because mostly that's when it gets into the bad. But what the good part of it is we're starting to get into the owner, because last episode we found that Trent was suspicious because the owner of the Ark program and his wife is there, and you're just like, why? You're like, why is this CEO, this owner here of the Ark program, have to be on Ark One? And then it gives like this little backstory where Lane is looking on his tablet and he's like, hey, since I'm keeping this secret, because in the beginning of the episode he was talking to Sharon and they were like having scotch or whatever, and she's like, to not, keeping secrets. And he and this is where I'll kind of like ding it a little bit. The show, what the show does with expressions is so obvious. Because remember when I said Trent was being all obvious of being suspicious, like kind of nodding to the crowd, like, "Hey, I am not good. You should keep an eye on me." They do that with Lane here, where she's having whiskey, and let me see if I could find it for you guys real quick. And remember, this is live, so everything's gonna be. There we go. Let me see if I can find it. She's talking, and he's like, "Why are we having a drink here?" Yeah, you saw how his head was down. His head is down like this, right? And there's a pause. There's a pause of him just being like, I don't know, should I tell her the secret? And that's what happens as far as that. So like the obvious expressions is really funny when it comes to that. And that's another bad. I guess another good point I could tell is that the whole Lane and Grant's not Grant, Sharon, I think Garnett, Sharon Garnett is her name. Jesus Christ, I have so many shows. That's another thing. I need to start having notes just so I know every character and I'm not mixing characters and stuff. But Sharon's, starting to get a little friendly with Lane, and it's actually pretty nice seeing them get along because the past like 4 episodes they were just at each other's throat until Sharon pretty much said, "I'm a clone," which watched that episode, which is hilarious. But what he also learns that in the secret department of the ship where the owner is and his wife is, there's another secret door where it opens, and they don't really explain it because I get the only thing I could think of is is this DNA? Is this like some stem cell stuff that's in those tubes? But it has everybody's names and like 2 of them, and then he says, gathering by twos, meaning the Noah Ark and all that stuff. So you don't get an explanation, but I'm like so hooked on wondering why they're there and what is going on. The security Strickland, I think, he's been consistent as far as acting wise. I mean, he does have that monotone voice, but he's so like calm, and he has some good dialogue with the crew here. I truly that's another thing, but this is where I was surprised because Eva, who's the engineer on the ship, she was kind of giving oh my god, I forgot his name. Bryce? Yeah, there we go. Bryce. I think see, all these names are confusing me. It's great. But Bryce was like kind of like flirting around with Ava, they were just having like deep discussions. They know each other. We still don't know their history because things are starting to bloom as far as character development. But Bryce and Ava talking in the beginning of the episode, Bryce collapsed after getting out of the cafeteria, and then we find out it's some sickness that's happening on Earth because they're trying to stop climate change or global warming, and they're putting this chemical in the air, which apparently is getting people sick. I don't know have you ever heard the government, making people sick with chemicals and stuff? I don't know. That never happened, right? Anyway, you get that backstory, which is interesting because again, the owner of Ark system, or a rich person, and then climate change that's happening going on. Did the owner do climate change to activate this Ark program? So things are starting to come together as far as if that's the case. But I'm digging that storyline. But what I was talking about, Ava and Bryce, there's a part where, and this is where the bad comes in, I guess. They have to do a slingshot maneuver. They have to go around a star, slingshot off of a star perfectly at a certain degree, and then and open up the sails to pretty much push the ship in the direction of the planet with the resources. Ava knows about, something wrong with him, finding him out passed out after the cafeteria, then also finding out that he has this disease. She goes onto the transporter because they have to, do the transporter. No, that's not the transporter yet. They had to take the Ark and go around that star. And she goes on later because after they do that maneuver, they take a shuttle, and she's like, I need to go with you because you could pass out, which essentially he did pass out. But the chemistry of them arguing made me laugh, and I know a lot of people are probably going to be cringy with their talk back and forth, but I kind of like that, having some charisma with some of the crew. Now other people are cringy, and I do see that. So don't get me wrong, but I thought this was pretty good. Now, I want to give some dings. When I mean dings, that means it's negative. The whole science thing where they get all nerdy with Alicia with the whole gravitational pull, and then they're just like blurting out science. It's so cringy in a way where it's like I don't know if they're saying, because they don't do, because I know someone in the comments are gonna be like, well, Bryce and other people have said, speak English. But what's great about other shows is like you get that mumbo jumbo, and then halfway someone goes, all right, stop speaking this science stuff. Can you tell me in like layman's terms what's going on? And then they'll explain it like you're a baby, and it's great. We don't get that enough because again, you had those two vials that I don't know if it's about clones or stuff. I'm guessing that because of Sharon, because she's a clone, and maybe the Ark guy is making clones. I don't know. But like when Alicia goes off, and she does get cut off at some point, but it doesn't explain it to the point where I'm like just like, well, is that even possible? It's just it's a little weird when it comes to that. Um Another thing they had to, this is where I think the writing is lacking again, is they're starting to recycle things. So last episode, remember when Trent had to do a suicide mission? to get to the radiation room and turn off the switch. Well, now they have to deal with another radiation where the sail doesn't work because one of them is not hooking on to where it needs to be hooked, and they're not getting enough speed to the point where they're going to make the planet. Again, that's where the science thing. Well, I'm like, well, then can't they just, I don't know, thrust it at some point? But I guess they retcon it with, we're running out of gas and we can't really use gas to push us forward to where we need to go. So I don't know. But anyway, they had to recycle another moment of Sharon going out there because she's a clone and she can handle more radiation than others. And that does happen. And then she gets like goo on her face that is supposed to be like radiation burns. Yeah, she's right there with all the goo on her face. I don't know if I can get a clear. There we go. we get this here. I know that's the cream, but under it is, the radiation burns, and she's gonna be fine. That's what it seems to be. Uh, and one more bad point I want to bring up, and it happens in the beginning of the episode. Why do they have ranks? Like, I'm starting to think, because the first problem, when we hear the problem of the episode, it's coming from Ava. She's like, "Well, I had to revert, some power resources to this area," and then you're like, "How much?" So she did the action without telling her captain what's going on. Like, it boggles my mind that other people are doing things without the knowledge of the captain, especially when it's dire needs and we should be rationing some things to a point. And they do this like weird like freak out moment, even to the point where the captain is also freaking out. It's so bad. But overall, because I don't want to spend too much on it, I was satisfied with this episode. There's some things I can nitpick. Obviously the graphics of seeing Sharon going out and it looks like a video game. It's the Sci-Fi Channel, but what's kind of getting stronger is the whole character development from pretty much all the people without dollar store Toby Maguire and then the Alicia chick. They're just like side characters to the point where they have to be like the Bill Nyes of the episode to explain the science, and I get that, and maybe we'll get more on that. But we're getting Bryce's story about how he's sick and how he's endangering the the crew with the sickness, which boggles my mind that he would rather put people in danger just so that he could live his life to the fullest in these daredevil moments. So I guess I could ding that as far as kind of stupid writing. But the backstory of the owner, I thought Ava was fine on this. They also do the therapist. I forgot her name, so I'm just gonna call the therapist. He's starting to bring up that the owner's on here, and she's kind of worried about it. And that's something where I'm more interested as far as what's wrong with her and why is she freaking out. But yeah, the character development is starting to bloom, and I'm getting more interested in this story as far as what happened. Oh yeah, that's another thing. At the end of this episode, they roll up on this planet, and Eve was like, oh, that's the other thing. God damn it! I'm sorry, guys. They they found the material or the element that attacked their ship on that planet, and they're just like, "Oh, let's go to that planet because it has gas." And then they're like having another discussion, like we shouldn't go there. And then they have the "we need to do this or we're gonna die" speech for the like thousandth time in this show. But at the end of the episode, they take the transporter and they find out that the element's not on the planet. It's another arc behind the planet. So, but just as much as it's stupid, like wouldn't you computers know that it's in the planet and not outside of the planet? But I digress on that. But I'm just like, well, whoa, there's another arc. What's going on with this? Are we getting more story of the about the bad guys in the show finally? And I'm interested about that. So I will give this a solid 3 out of 5 as far as seeing this episode. So, all right, we're gonna move on to another show, and that will be The Last of Us, season 1, episode 7. But we'll have another ad here, so be right back.
Wrestling nerds, wrestling weebs, wrestling fans. If you're looking for a different kind of podcast, one that goes over actual big wrestling news, I mean real stories, not somebody getting divorced or baseless rumors or whatnot, and get some color, we got that. We also do reviews of wrestling from the past, but sometimes we also do wrestling from the modern day too, if it's something that interests us at the time. Other than that, I would say the main attraction is just three guys who have been lifelong wrestling fans doing what wrestling fans do. Cutting up, cracking jokes, and just enjoying the entertainment wrestling can provide. However that comes. If you want to catch Getting Some Color, you can catch it bi-weekly on Thursdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, usually.
All right, let's get set up here for this baby right here. And I'll bring up here season 1, episode 7 of The Last of Us. Now, oh man, not episode 7. I do apologize. Episode 8. I'm just going to take that down so that it's not up there. Why do I always mess up somehow, right? But anyway, let's get into this here. I'm going to be frank with you guys. Now, I will say episode 7, I'm still waiting on that review, but after seeing 8, and now we have a season finale coming up, I'm just going to say, like, I don't know why we had to get that episode on episode 7. I don't think there was any reason to do that. I think that could have been a splash of a flashback somehow. Maybe sprinkled throughout the episode, but we're coming on the season finale on episode 9, and I'm just like, where is the chemistry between Joel and Ellie? We're getting these like single episodes. I'm like, this is not developing well for me, and this is a problem. I guarantee you, there's 2 different experiences happening right now in The Last of Us. You have the people that played the game, and there's going to be 2 camps that the people are playing this game. You're going to have the nostalgic freaks that are just like gushing that it is capturing almost every moment that is happening in the game. And then you're going to have people that are just like, I'm bored because I know what's going to happen. And then you're going to have the people on the other side that are just straight hating it because the writing is so bad. And I truly think I'm in both camps. I'm both in, actually I'm going to scratch that out for as far as when I do the what do you call it? When I cut these into single videos here. But what I meant by 2 camps is you have the people that already played the game who are watching the show, and then you have the people that didn't play the game and are watching the show. And the people that didn't play the game, they're getting new experiences. They're seeing everything for the first time, and they're having that shock moment and that sad moment and all that stuff. And you're just like, you're probably having a better time than people that played the game and are watching the show. So what I was saying with the people that played the game, there is 2 camps. You're going to have the people that are, happy for the nostalgic stuff going on, and they're loving every moment seeing that. And then you're going to have the people that are not really caring for the nostalgic moments, and they're saying this is bad writing and that everything is slow, and this should be a world that I'm learning about instead of, getting every scene from the video game. Now they do cut some things out, and I do get that. But you're getting all the big beats of the story, and you're just like, I already know. I know what's happening at at this point in the show. And I feel like I'm in that camp. I'm the one that is not fond that we're getting all this nostalgic moments, but I get it if they stray off just a tad bit, that the people that are wanting that scene by scene are going to pretty much hate them because you're not sticking to the source material. So it's a lose-lose situation most of the time. But my thing is when I'm watching this episode, I'm like, oh, there's David, and there's going to be his group. Now, I believe they did change in the show that they're leaning very hard on the religious factor. Now, I don't remember in the game if they did have a religion. I just know that people follow him because, during post-apocalyptic worlds, there's always one that stands up and takes over, whether it's a good guy or a bad guy. There's always people sticking to a group and having that leader. But I knew every beat coming on, and like I'm gonna go through each scene here. Actually, that's the no, getting copyright claim. No. So, we get this backstory, which is great, of him doing a revelation and then having that little girl pretty much be the father that died in last time Joel was attacked by that group of people at the hospital. One of them was the father. So we're getting a callback there, and we're getting, I guess, a little bit side story. But they're talking, about the current situation of the Ellie and Joel being out there, and then we get a moment here where Ellie is like, "I'm gonna go get some supplies." She has to go out. We're not getting any chemistry besides Joel being almost dead on the ground and her just talking. Uh, but she goes out, and you already know what's gonna happen. They're gonna She's gonna run into David and the other guy, and she's gonna point the gun, and automatically, they're gonna go to that barn, and it's gonna be a trap because she's gonna be there, and she runs away. And they're having discussion. It's just, to me, it's so predictable, and I think that loses me. I don't care for nostalgia. My main thing with this show, and I know people are probably be like, "Can you just review the show and like say what happened in episode 8?" But I'll just say it here. What happens in episode 8? Ellie needs to get supplies. She runs into David's part of this religious group that is eating people, and they sprinkle in the part where she's in the cage. She breaks his finger. Then they put her on the table, and he's about to cut her, but then she brings up the point that she's infected. Then we get to the end scene where she's in the diner or the dining area, and it's on fire, and she stabs him. And then obviously Joel has that iconic interrogation scene where he kills the guy in front of the other guy that's hooked up to the radiator, and he's like, he was telling the truth, you don't have to kill us. And he looks like he's about to torture the other guy. And he kills him. He's like, I believe you. I believed him. So you get that, and it just ends. And I know I said this a thousand times, a million times, but this TV shows are meant to world build. They're supposed to show what is happening in this world. Now, if you want to say this is a miniseries, and this could be a miniseries because we are doing 9 episodes, and if this is all we're getting, then this is all we're getting. As far as we're literally getting the first game and the second game, all the big beats, pretty much from getting point A to point B, which happens at the end of episode 9, which I'm not going to spoil yet. And Then we get to the part where, we get the second game, and I'm trying not to spoil anything, so that's why I was kind of silent there. But I don't want carbon copies. I think you could have parts where it's like, oh, this is the part where they're doing this in the game in like a span of 15 to 20 minutes, where we're like, oh, that's the scene in the game, that's the scene in the game. And we're moving story ahead because now we're getting context to every scene that we're getting in the game, but are happening in real time in the world. Now, that's why I wish that like we had episodes where we're learning about Jackson a little bit more, or we're learning about the quarantine zones in Boston. Like we should be breathing the world through the environments that these characters are coming from. And it doesn't seem like we're getting that at all. Now, if that changes in season 2, where we're starting to see the world on how it is, and what the backstory of the Fireflies and all the other people that we're running into in the game and now in the show, I think that would be more interesting, because I want that, because I'm so immersed into a world that I want to live in that world while watching the TV show. What I see in this show is like I'm seeing a slideshow of what I played in the game, but just showed back to me in a movie format. Like it literally seems like they're taking the game and they're just like, all right, we're gonna cut this scene. We'll leave that scene out because they're running down a street and it's part of gameplay. But then they'll take this scene, and they'll just paste it together, and they'll add like one or two things that are just not big at all. And we're just getting like, oh, this is where they go in this building before they get to the other building or the other scene that's going to be part of the game's beats again. But I want that world. I want to know of like characters. We should be getting more character development while they're having dialogues with the current moment in the show. And I don't know, maybe TV has changed where people don't want that world building anymore, and they just want a straight story of being like, all right, and protagonist and antagonist fighting, and let's just get to the end where they have the final battle and that's it. Like, if that's what people want, then I guess you're getting what you're getting in The Last of Us. And in my opinion, I I thought this episode was okay. Like, it's very mid for me. I guarantee you, like I said, people that watch the show but haven't played the game, they're having like a oh my god moment and everything. But I don't feel it, man. And it's starting to get me worried about what's going on in the season finale. And I'm starting to get worried. So yeah, I'll give this a 2.5 out of 5. I don't think it was great. Obviously, if you have different opinions, then please comment down below. Don't hit dislike button because you hate seeing other people dislike the show because they have different opinions. Tell me your opinion, and maybe we could have a discussion in the comments section, and maybe you might change my mind as far as how I'm viewing this. But let's get into some Picard, but I will hit you with another ad. So we'll be right back.
What's the best Indiana Jones movie? Which Dracula movie was the worst? Who even is Andrei Tarkovsky? 4 hosts, somehow 5 or more opinions. The ranking movie podcast you'll put at the top of your list. Check out Big Trouble in Little Podcast live every week at 10 p.m. Eastern or anytime on YouTube and anywhere you get your favorite podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Stitcher.
Oh, crap. We're right there. Cool. All right, this time I got it right. This time I got it right. All right, everybody. Picard season 3, episode 4. It is No-win scenario is the name of the episode. Last episode, they they were getting attacked by the other ship, which had Baddock on it. I think is the Shrike. I think that's their ship's name. But the Shrike came out and said, "I have all those big guns. You ain't gonna do nothing to us." And they had Riker and Picard have a discussion. Like Picard was all about attacking. We need to, sneak up behind them and shoot them. And Riker was on the other side of being like, I don't know if we could beat them, so I don't want to shoot them and I don't want to, kill people on the ship. But anyway, they lose a battle and they're starting to, pretty much sink in the gravity hole in the nebula. And Riker pretty much says to Picard, you killed us all, get off the bridge. And we lead into this episode where, man, I thought last episode was amazing. That's why I gave it a 5 out of 5. And I don't know, man. I can't think of anything bad to say for episode 4 either. Like, it's so structurally written well from beginning to end, where it just ties it really nice. And on top of that is very, very Star Trek-y situation where other characters that, you know, not just Riker and Picard, and they don't have, Data there anymore, and there's no Worf yet. But you have Beverly in the background, you know, during the episode, just counting down this energy that happens every like 6 or 7 seconds, and she's trying to count it like contractions in pregnancy. But man, it opens when they're in a restaurant and Picard is like eating lunch, and all the cadets or people in Starfleet come up to him and ask him about his, stories back in the day. And you're just like, oh man, we're having all these all these flashbacks, and I'm like, oh, are we gonna get this throughout the whole episode? I was like, oh, is this gonna be finally a filler? And no, it wasn't. But Riker's on the ship. He's finding out, all the situations. I think he chose 4 hours, because they had to move certain powers and resources to a part where they could still breathe. And apparently, they had 4 hours left. They had Jonathan Frakes acted his ass off in this episode. It was so amazing, the dialogue between Riker and Picard, because Riker comes in and he's trying to talk to Picard, because Picard right away is apologizing. He's like, I'm so sorry. And Riker's like trying to get to the point that he was right. And then he gets into some backstory about his, dead child, where Deanna Troi, because she could read people's feelings, wasn't feeling anything for Riker. Because at that part, Riker is like, I was looking into the abyss of as my son was being lowered in the hole, and he didn't feel any. He went numb, and he thought by going out with Picard, like he would get that feeling again. And pretty much great intro, because you're just like, he's unsure, and so is Picard, even though he was right in his strategy. Clearly, they would have never won anyway, because they used that portal weapon, and both situations were going to be losses. But for the first time ever, both Picard and Riker are just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on. So we get side story, because remember in the other episode, 7 of 9 finds out about a changeling on board. So she's trying to track down a changeling. She talks to Riker, and Riker's like, keep this quiet. And 7 of 9 is like, what do you mean keep this quiet? But he's like, hey, I'm I'm not trying to keep it from people, but I kind of want you to be, a saboteur and like try to get the upper hand and like flank the person without being on record, because at the moment she's supposed to be arrested for disobeying an order. And this is the part where I said she's counting down all the energies that are happening every 7 seconds. And Picard asks Jack Crusher, because this is gonna lead to the cherry on top as far as the whole episode. Because remember, he started off in a restaurant, and then we're gonna see what happened in that restaurant. So Picard is like, we don't have much time. I want to know about my son, and they move on. Captain Shaw, the guy who plays Captain Shaw, is amazing. I remember him in 12 Monkeys TV show, and he's one of my favorite characters. But he is so great as a captain on Star Trek, where I'm to the point where I want to, after Picard, I hope they do a Star Trek Titan or a Star Trek Shaw series, because I want to see him more on Star Trek. And the crew that I've seen so far, I wouldn't mind them, being the characters, and maybe we could add some people. Maybe Worf could be someone that could show appearances, or other people like Riker. And b- when Riker was having the conversation with Picard about the sun, and because they have 4 hours left, he's trying to like leave a message, but he pauses. And I really like how that was written, because you're probably wondering like, hey man, you don't have a lot of free time. You're gonna die in like 4 hours. You should get that message out so that Deanna Troy could actually know your feelings. But what I like how it was written, it's pause, like there's some type of hope. Like, even though it's like written where his face is like, man, I can't do it. To me, I translate that to hope. Like, he has to do something to save his life. He has to get through this to feel again. So I like how that was written. So they go here to the bar in the holodeck, and they're having a conversation. Again, character development with Jack Crusher. Picard is trying to get to know his kid, and the way it's looking is that Jack Crusher thought, you know, I don't need this. I don't need to know you. And again, it's going to tie up easily at the end of this episode. And you're going to be like, oh, that's why he feels like that. But at this point, Jack Crusher's like, I'm not here for me. So what are we really here for? And Picard says, well, I'm here. I'm doing this for me. I want to get to know you. And we get back to the 7 of 9 and Shaw, because Shaw is like, oh crap, there's a changeling on board. We need to fix this situation. And he's telling her, well, because she asks, how will I know who is a changeling? And he starts to like appreciate her. He's like, oh yeah, I get it now. People that don't know enough about people, they're gonna get things wrong, and that's how they would detect things. But he brings up the point that at certain point, changelings need to go into like a puddle, and they have to put their body in like a bucket or a vase, and she's on a mission to look for that vase. And they show again slightly when she's walking through the hallways that people are kind of like disgusted with her because she was a Borg, and then obviously Shaw shows that he doesn't like the Borg. I guess if I had to like critique it a little bit this episode, Vanek gets up at some point and goes near this like bowl area, and she cuts her hand, and that's when we find out that she's a changeling too. And that hand turns into this communicator. I don't know why they couldn't afford to build a computer so that they could communicate with each other. But instead, they're cutting off the hand, and we're getting this person that I don't know who it is yet, but I'm dying to know who that is because everything is interesting about the changeling being in this season. Let's see here. Then they get back to the dinner scene. Not that they explain about the another stories and stuff about Jack Crusher. And Jack Crusher also brings up that he's, good on his own, being alone on the outside compared to being with a group like Starfleet. And I never understood this until pretty much the end of this episode, where I'm just like, oh, now that makes sense, because he's like, I don't want to be with Starfleet. And all I can think about is like, why? You have Dr. Crusher, you have you, and you just seem perfect for this anyway, based off of the action that we saw happen in episode 2. But they move it along. We find out there's a changeling. He shoots the ball, and she shoots him, and he turns into like pizza, whatever this is, and he goes into the engine. I guess I could ding that a little bit as far as being silly, but I guess I could appreciate it for actually being a material instead of looking like transparent. But what tops off this whole episode is this moment here where Shaw comes into the bar. I think the bar is called 10 Forward. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But Shaw comes in and he's like, I know your father, and you want to know where he is. So he Shaw talks about himself. He's like, there's a point where there was 40 Starfleet ships firing at one Borg cube, and there was escape pods that were happening, and 10 people were put on that pods, and he was one of them. And his lieutenant picked him. He didn't know why he picked him, because he's a grease monkey. He was in engineering. He knows about ships and stuff, and he never understood that. And he talked about 11,000 people dying from this battle. And he talks about Picard being Locutus of the Borg. And man, Shaw acted. This was an amazing scene. This was the part I was like, "Oh, I feel the emotions on that." And you're probably thinking, after you say that stuff, there would be a fight, because there was a part where Jack Crusher is starting to, feel for Picard, because he's just being, yelled at by Shaw and degraded. Picard gets up and he said, "It's okay. I understand." And he walks out. And I really think Shaw was looking for a fight. I think he was to the point where, they're about to die, because we rescued these guys. The reason the ship is, being destroyed and everybody's going to die. And I think he was really looking for a fight, and he didn't really expect Picard to do that. He thought he was going to yell at him, and there was going to be fisticuffs. Who knew? That's how I feel. Then we move along. They come up with a plan where they're going to ride the wave of the energy, but they have to shut off all resources, including life support. And they come up with a plan that they're going to take the warp core, and they're going to open up vents, and they'll take the energy from the vents and then into the warp core. So obviously they had to get a person to do that job as far as getting the person, and they had to go to Shaw, because remember, he's a grease monkey. And the exchange from Picard, he's like, even though I think you're a dipshit from Chicago, I need you to do this, and you're the best for the job. And Shaw responds, nice. I like that, because he likes to be that aggressive guy and dominant guy, and he pretty much got out dominated here, and he liked that. He likes fight back. And I again, I love the character development on that. Then they do the job during. They had the moment where Riker gives Picard the chair, and he like tells to move out, and then he does the engage, and I was like, yes, that's great, because they did the part where 7 of 9 did that, and they did the engage, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then now finally we get Picard, which I think this is the first time we get to see Picard in a captain seat in this season, because remember, he's always doing the you know, being off with a crew and not the leader of the crew. But at a certain point, LaForge's daughter comes up here, and Shaw's like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to be like flying this ship?" And he's like, "Oh, Picard, told me to go here." And 7 of 9's like, "No, I specifically told him not to send anybody." And then she asks, "Who am I?" And she doesn't say, Commander, 7, and she shoots LaForge, and it's a changeling. And Shaw's like, "How did you know?" And he's like, "Well, she gives me respect and calls me Commander 7." And I was like, that was a good comeback too. That was just so great. I loved it. Then trying to see what else. They had to like move in between manually through the asteroid field. That was like one of the big things. And finally, they open up the vents, and they're able to ride the wave, and they get all their power back because it just re-energizes. It re-energizes the ship. Trying to get there is a scene right after they get the energy from the wave that the Shrike comes in, because the leader, that the hand leader that she was talking to, told her to go back and pursue, and she's like, "No, I don't want to put my people in danger." He's like, "You're expendable. You're going," and she had to do it. And what's great about this part is the Titan's about to do warp speed, and she comes like, "Ha ha ha! I'm gonna destroy you." And then Riker's like, "Hey, I'm gonna toss this asteroid." He takes a tracker beam, takes an asteroid, and tosses it at the Shrike, and they get away, and they warp. And this is a great scene. It goes back to episode 1, I believe it was at Farpoint, where you see the squid aliens. So apparently there was a what do you call it, a pregnancy happening, because those contraptions that or contractions that were happening were the birth of these aliens. And we got that beautiful scene, and to seek out new aliens and to boldly get the hell out of here. It was just that was cool to see. And everybody's happy. And this is the part where it just he's like, "I need to get back to my lunch. I'm gonna get back to my lunch." And he kind of like starts to shoo him off, and trying to get to the scene. I'm sorry. There we go. So I did, after seeing this a second time, I watched in the beginning, and I did see him in the background, and I thought that was, pretty good, because I was like, man, I didn't see anybody back there, because you're too focused on Picard and all these Starfleet people that you didn't care for a guy that's wearing a black ball cap and a jacket. So as they're starting to leave, Jack Crusher asks a question: "Did you have a family before Starfleet?" And Picard responds with, "Starfleet has always been my family." And he like smiles because he's getting applause and everything. And that's the moment that that Jack Crusher, this is the part where he didn't want to know about his dad anymore. because he was probably searching out Picard and to getting to know him, and this is how I guess he could test it before he uh decides to find out. And again, that's where you get the hate of Starfleet, where he's like, I don't want to be with Starfleet, I'm good on my own. And I think it comes down to this moment here where he loves Starfleet more than his son that he didn't know about. But anyway, we get this scene here with Riker and Deanna Troi, and it's like, I love hearing about your feelings. And then we have more of this Jack Crusher and the red door moment, because there's a red door that happens at the end of this. And man, oh man, this, I can't say, like, the only thing I could ding it for is the hand thing. I was entertained just how it ended with the whole Jack Crusher was in the restaurant 5 years ago. I think it was 5 years ago. And I was like, wow, like that's good writing, because we're getting all this stuff like, oh, Jack didn't really want to see you, because that's what Beverly and Picard were talking about. He's like, he didn't want to seek you, and you're just like, why? And then we get that part where he finds out that Picard loves Starfleet more than family, and he just didn't want to hear about that. But I do like that Jack Crusher is starting to appreciate Picard, because he was sticking up for him with Shaw. I just can't think of anything bad to say about this episode. And I'm sorry, I'm going to give it another perfect score. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. And I know people are going to be like, that's kind of stupid, because you're doing it because it's very Star Trek-y. And no, it's beyond that. Like, yes, I love that Star Trek is back as far as being written like a Star Trek show. But everything is written well, where I am constantly looking at the screen and where I'm always like, this is awesome. I love it. But yeah, 5 out of 5. And that is Picard season 3, episode 4. So we get back to this here. It was supposed to be a quick thing, but I got too into a lot of things. I'm going to find ways that I could cut down the time, because I wanted to make this like a either maximum 45-minute or a 30-minute minimum show as far as live. I don't want to do it for an hour, because I know when people search on YouTube, when they see an hour, they know they're not going to want to sit through that. So I will tell you this: for website, I have bigtroublearchives.com. Then Twitter, I have at BTA Content, and I do Twitch stream at JoeDubs35, as you can see here on my icon here. So again, with the live, and I kind of want to, I did cut myself off before, but as far as what I want to do with live is things that I'm not going to like deeply review will be on the live show, where I'm kind of giving you a ranty experience of what I experience in these episodes. Next video will probably be my final format as far as what's going to be going on with this channel, but that should be coming out in the coming week or weeks. I do apologize that I was not able to cover these episodes when they were coming out, because I had some personal things going on with my family, which I did put on a community tab. But I'm still trying to find my way of doing things. And I think this way is going to be easier for me to push out more content at better speed, and hopefully be more interactive, because if we start having people in these live streams, then we could have discussions that are happening in the comments section, but live. But yeah, just keep in mind that I'm still working things out. I'm trying to feel things, get things in order, and then I can push out these videos and live streams for you. So until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video. or on the couch, and I forgot to do my intro in the beginning where I'm like, get a snack, get a drink, and let's get into some couch entertainments. I didn't even do that, but I will say I will see you in the next video or live stream on the couch. Bye, guys.